Hey guys, it's Davey here, and it's currently day 171. I hope you guys had an amazing day, and I do hope you guys are doing better than yesterday. However, today I want to talk about the topic "It's not your fault." The setbacks life bring us are not personal, right? The mistakes we make are not entirely your fault, and being pessimistic and explaining why things are happening at the worst creates this false illusion of why it has happened to you. The chances are it's not your fault. It's not permanent, inescapable, and personal. But when you believe you are the one to blame for everything, you think it's universal rather than circumstance difference. There's a difference, right? There's a difference to owning up to your own mistakes compared to taking all the fault yourself. You do everything in your power and what you think is best, but the result of your efforts shouldn't bring you down to the point where you think it's permanent and inescapable. We cannot determine how people react to us, but yet majority of the time we think they react to us because of us. We take everything so personal and we think we are the main character when circumstances do play a role in how people react and how things just happen towards us. Being rejected by a crush is totally fine, right? We all had rejected by a crush, and if you guys had not been rejected, then congrats to you. But it's a very basic example that we all had once in our life build up this courage to ask out whatever who it is we want to ask out, and we have been rejected. And when that does happen, we think that we are the problem. We think that either we are ugly, short, incompetent, or whatever, right? We think we are not the best option. However, it's totally fine to be rejected and is healthy to learn from the situation and understand that you two are not compatible in the first place. But it's not your fault, so don't beat yourself down while simultaneously thinking you're the reason that they rejected you. Pessimistic thinking is what turns a setback into a disaster. Although we try to make plenty of positive statements to keep us afloat in our everyday life, we seldom realize just how much more negative comments we make to ourselves on a daily basis. So, exercise you guys can do next time is to find out just how many times you make negative statements. I want you to be more self aware. I want you to be more self aware during your day, tomorrow, or today, even, and not being so focused on what you actually say to yourself because that's a bit too much, right? First, just be more self-aware of how you feel at the end of the day and see whether you're more optimistic or pessimistic. Now, optimistic is being more confident, being more happy, uplifting, and pessimistic is basically thinking for the worst. So pretty much sad and down all the time. Now, when I did this and when I was more aware, I knew right from the start that my days were more on the negative side because I always thought the fault was mine. Even though it may not be mine, I would still take the blame for it. I will beat myself down, and when I don't perform great one day, I will think I'm so lazy. Like, I'll think I'm so lazy. I'll think I'm so ungrateful for what my parents had done to put me in this situation of opportunities. I'll think I am the sole reason that I didn't accomplish what I said I wanted to do. I'll beat myself down when I didn't go through with my promises. When ignoring the fact that maybe I was just not feeling great today. Maybe I was under the weather. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night. I was ignoring these little, what seems like innocuous factors that plays in how my day felt. But when these circumstances really does take up majority of how our day will turn out. I'll criticize myself when I relax on my couch watching TV and don't pick myself up to do some good habits or form these good habits. And I ignore that I'm cutting weight, starving myself every day, and basically forcing my body to adapt on minimum energy to just keep me alive. I was ignoring these factors, these circumstances. I think there's something wrong with me or I'm too young to start my business when people decided to reject me. Ignoring that they may just be having a bad day. Their boss may have just shot at them before I called them. Their spouse may have signed the divorce papers. I was ignoring everything else and thinking that I am the sole reason, I am the person in the spotlight, thinking that I have to carry on all the fault and all the burden. That simply isn't the truth. That is pessimistic thinking. You see, the issue was I was just too rigid. I was too rigid and pessimistic at explaining why these things are happening to me, and I ignore the importance and different circumstance that were in place. Yes, I was accountable. I was so accountable. I owned up to everything, but it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem when you start owning up to things that were never once yours to be concerned about. It is good, guys, to be accountable, but there's a fine line where accountability becomes a problem. You see, if you guys are using negativity as ways to improve yourself, as self assessment, as self feedback, and that's good, right? We need negativity. We need some hard, cold truth to make us be productive next time, to find fault where we can improve on. But if you're constantly pessimistic in this negative thinking, then it becomes counterproductive because you're no longer seeing the truth as reality. You're going to the end of the extremes. When something so little happened to you, when some little setback happened to you, you think you have to change your whole self. When somebody rejects you, you don't think about, oh, maybe they're not compatible with you, or maybe that they just don't like people with black hair or something like that. You think that you, as a whole person, they were disgusted about, so you have to change, right? You start changing things where you can't change. You start changing your height. You start making these big leap of faith when you can't just simply do the small changing because change takes time. Change starts with small little changes. So how can we expect being in this negative state of thinking to make this big leap of faith to change our whole existence for someone or something when that isn't even the true reason why we got rejected in the first place? They may be having a bad day. They may just not be compatible to us. We may just be having a bad day ourselves. We may not have slept well the night before, so we didn't perform as well today. We didn't live up to the expectation, not because we can't live up to our expectations, but because we are in a circumstance that didn't allow us to live up to what we expected of us to live up to. And that is when being overtly negative becomes counterproductive. It no longer becomes a realistic and reasonable feedback where you can give yourself to improve and actually applicate to your daily life. It's no longer applicable, right? You just can't simply just change my age. I can't change my age, right? I can't just supercharge my body and just, take a shot and just go insane, right? Just have all these energy. I can't do that, guys. I can't do that. And yet I'll force my body to do that. And it's just not realistic. It's not realistic things we can do. We can't change circumstances. And I just can't change the weather. So if it's going to rain tomorrow, then I better just bring an umbrella. But would I blame myself like, oh, I'm such a horrible person that the world has to punish me, the universe has to punish me and just set storm upon me? Like, doesn't that just sound so ridiculous and dumb? Well, that's what many people do. And I say that because I do. And I know people who think pessimistic and think everything is their fault when it's not their fault. Not everything is about you, is what I'm trying to say. Not everything's about you. And even when it is, most likely it isn't. It is just what your inner voice is telling you. Because we can change circumstances. And don't ignore that you are in one and things happen because of them, not just because of what you do and don't do. And it's all different for everyone else. It's all different for everybody else. Everybody lives in their own circumstances. So make the best out of it. Am I saying hold off on your potential? No, I'm not saying that. If you still think that I'm telling you guys to hold off on your potential and don't try hard and give it 100%, you misunderstood everything. It is not about trying hard. It's about doing everything you can do in your circumstance, giving all you got, being accountable if things do go wrong, but never put the blame all onto yourself because the fault is never all yours. All right. Be conscious that there are other factors in play as to how you feel. Find out what they are and improve the little things. Don't try and make this big ass jump when you can't even make the little changes. Because once you think everything is against you, once you think the world is against you, you will be discouraged quickly. And how do you think you can achieve greatness when you lose persistence in the beginning? And that's how people lose persistence. Is when they get stuck up in their head, thinking that the world is against them, thinking that they are in a setback that is inescapable. They think that this is permanent, so they are fighting against all odds. You're not fighting against all odds. You're not fighting with anyone. You're just overcoming your own belief. You're just overcoming your own thinking. You're just pulling yourself in the present and actually attacking what needs to be done. And the change is very small because making the big change, you cannot calculate that. You cannot just go from one person to someone else overnight. It doesn't happen like that, and it's unsustainable, guys. We are here for the long run. We are here for sustainability. Life will unfold over time, and we can make the best out of it by just simply not blaming everything onto ourselves because life is more than that. Life is more about self punishment. Life is more about self ridicule, right? You got to work around things, and that's totally fine. You have different circumstances. I have different circumstances. But what you do need to know is that you are in one, and things do happen because of them and not because of what you do and do not do. But this is all I gotta say for today. I hope you guys learned something from this. But if not, like always, I will be here for you guys tomorrow. But until then,